Hello again, 10th grade. Good to see you all. I'm going to read a little bit to you guys from Ecclesiastes at first, just because I think it goes along with what we're doing with the Great Gatsby. Thematically, it goes really well. And two, that was one that was often my go-to as a teenager, and even now. It was funny because I would, if I ended up in a bummed out mood or kind of an angsty feeling or just a whole lot of questions, that would kind of be my go-to reading. And then my mom would find out. She'd be like, why are you reading that when you feel that bad? But anyway, it's just kind of, really a helpful book. I mean, obviously it's scripture, but I wanted to share it with you all. I think that it might be an encouragement just with the uncertainty and change and differences going on right now, as we're reevaluating the way that we do things, our priorities. And again, I think it really ties in with just the overall feel of The Great Gatsby. Even though that's not a Christian book, I think we do still see an accurate picture of life that is just frittered away, looks like. So Ecclesiastes 1, I'll be reading from chapters 1 and chapter 2. It's a fairly short book. Some of you have probably read it before. You could just kind of skip around, explore different parts over the next few weeks if you don't have anything else to read as far as scripture goes, or if you have a little extra time. All right. It says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness, and man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. I'm thinking of just the repetitiveness that some of us are feeling with all of our days right now, and even just the repetition of, parting and seeking after things in the book, especially where it says, the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has already been in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there yet be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. And I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. Chapter 2. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure, enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was a vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any other who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold, and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delights of the sons of men. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. And then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceived that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For of the wise as of the foolish there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a striving after wind. I hated all my toil in which I toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me, and who knows whether he will be wise or a fool. Yet he will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun, because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. And this also is vanity and a great evil. What has a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a person than he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to the one who pleases God. This also is vanity and a striving after the wind. All right, we'll stop there. That was a longer reading, but I wanted to provide it for those of you who had a moment to listen, or you can go back and read it for yourself. Sometimes it's good to just listen and let it soak in, and then sometimes you need to kind of look at it and study it for yourself. So maybe let that stew around in your mind as you are reading through The Great Gatsby and thinking even about your worldview papers and the worlds that are presented in your stories. All right. Okay, so for today, I'm going to go over a few tips for writing the introduction of your paper. So first we have today's work, so follow the reading schedule, and I'm posting a summary up for those of you reading the abridged version. It'll fill in the first part of chapter 7. Right, so discussion posts with your answer and 2 responses is due today. And then yesterday I looked at your TS and supports. I put feedback. So when you click on that assignment, you should be able to see the feedback. So don't just look at the grade because it was a completion grade. And go ahead, start working on your paper. Some of you may have already done that, but I would recommend, spacing it out over the next few days if you can. Use your resources to help you. Contact me if you have questions or feel stuck. So this is due on Wednesday. And again, if you want me to look over a rough draft, just try to have that to me no later than Monday, because if you get it to me like Monday night or Tuesday, then I've got to look over yours and other people's and get it back to you. But then you need to have the time to be able to work on it without freaking out at the last minute. So, all right. So notes for your essays. Here's some things that I wanted to share with you all. After looking at your thesis statements, so the importance of specific language and clarity, and I think for the most part you're doing well. It's just kind of fine-tuning it. Something that may help you as you're thinking about the worldview of your paper. So sometimes, um, you know, it will be specifically, it will follow a biblical worldview. And then sometimes it may contain a few elements that are similar to a biblical worldview, or some contradictions. Okay, so you can share those nuances. So when you use different language, you may not just want to say, it has a biblical worldview. You may want to specify what specifically is biblical, or what aligns itself with a biblical worldview versus what doesn't. And that can help some of you all who are like, well, it's not a Christian book and they don't even mention God and Jesus. But at the same time, there's some things that, follow a biblical worldview, or are similar to it. Also, you all already know this, just because a book has religious imagery or mentions God and Jesus doesn't mean that it's a biblical story. So you want to, you know, keep that in mind. And if you have questions about, if something's clear, again, I can look at it case by case. All right, so structuring your essay. So use your handout. Remember our outline format. So basics. You've got your intro paragraph, which is going to have your hook. That's your attention getter. We'll talk about that in a minute. Your brief overview of the book and your thesis statement. So you've already been working on your thesis statement. Body paragraphs, each support is going to take a paragraph. And then your closing, where you summarize, no new info, state your thesis, and leave the audience thinking. I'm also going to have this PowerPoint uploaded to this video page. So some ways to hook your reader, to get them to want to read your work. You could use a quote. It could be from the book, or it could be, related to the worldview or a major theme in the book that connects. A maxim or a moral. So a maxim is like a proverb or a wise saying, or you could make, just a strong moral observation. You could give shocking fact or data. This is usually going to happen more in, history or science probably, but you could, conceivably use a fact or a piece of data, especially if it's in regards to maybe historical context for a book. Question. So you can use a question to start. It generally tends to not be people's favorite, because a lot of times when people start off with a question, it's not a probing or thought-provoking question. It's just kind of there. And so, if it was something like, have you ever read The Count of Monte Cristo? Or have you ever thought about living in another universe? Okay, those aren't really good questions. They're kind of overused. So if you have a unique question that gets people to think deeply, then you can use a question. Okay, so make sure it's a really good question. You're not just filler. Brief story. You could do that if there's a story that's related, or if there's a snippet you want to share to really hook your reader in, that's fine. But realize that in this paragraph, you're also going to have a brief summary of your book. So you don't want to have too much summarization going on in that first paragraph. It may overwhelm your reader. Now, your overview. This is about a 2 to 3, it could be 4 or 5 tops, sentence summary of the main gist of the book. So you're going to share that in your introductory paragraph. So you're going to have hook, quick little summary of the book, and then your thesis statement, and then your body paragraphs. You're not summarizing. You are making your argument about the worldview of the book, using things from the book to be like, hey, here's an example. This is what made me think this. So what's going to be a sufficient overview for a short novel analysis? Some of you all may be like, I can't share everything that happened in the book. Well, I'm going to give you some examples from some of the things you read in 8th grade. And then this one right here has been made into a movie with Harrison Ford. I haven't seen it yet, so if it's not any good, just let me know. That way I don't waste my time. But here's an example for Call of the Wild. Now this is 1, 2, it's 3 sentences. Now, those are long sentences. One of them is definitely a compound sentence, complex sentence. So you can use different sentence structures to kind of tuck information in. And that's how you can keep it about 3 sentences, but also make sure your writing's really concise. It could be shorter than this, and that would be fine. So this is about the longest you would want for a quick little overview and an introductory paragraph for a 2 to 3 page paper. So here's your example. In The Call of the Wild Buck, a spoiled dog living in California during the Yukon Gold Rush. So notice I tucked some information about him being spoiled, where he lived, and when. I tucked all of that into an appositive after Buck instead of saying Buck was spoiled while he lived in California, period. This was during the Yukon Gold Rush. Unfortunately, he was, you see what I'm saying? So you're combining your sentences, make them nice and muscular. So he's kidnapped and sold north to become a sled dog as Buck meets new dogs and owners who range from ignorant to cruel to kind. So guess what? I don't tell all of the owners. You don't have to know that for this. I only give you just a brief description of the types of owners. So I divide out, boom, 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 moving on. He evolves into not only the leader of the group of sled dogs, but what London calls the dominant primordial beast. By the end of the story, Buck's ties are severed from humanity when his only truly friendly owner, John Thornton, is killed by Yeehat Indians, and Buck kills the chief and goes to live with the wolf pack, where he becomes the leader and follows the call of his ancestors, the call of the wild. So yeah, I have this crescendo that's over dramatic at the end because that's fun. But yeah, 3 sentences, and then you're ready to lead into your thesis. Example 2. So this is for Romeo and Juliet. It's a little bit longer because, man, that's one of Shakespeare's longest plays. It's 5 acts, lots of backstories and things. So here's how you could summarize this in, see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences. Okay. Again, it could be shorter. So in Romeo and Juliet, 2 young people from feuding families fall in love at a party and marry the next day in secret. That's the first 2 acts of the play. Okay. Before they can inform their families, Romeo gets into a fight with Juliet's hot-tempered cousin, kills him, and is banished by the prince. Meanwhile, Juliet's father arranges for her to marry Count Paris, and she flees to the friar, who gives her a potion to make her seem dead in order to delay the wedding and give him time to send for Romeo. Unfortunately, Romeo hears Juliet is dead, returns to her tomb, and kills himself. Upon waking, Juliet sees her love dead, and she takes his dagger and stabs herself. The death of these 2 young lovers leads to their parents' long-awaited reconciliation and repentance. Now, you may not feel like if you love Romeo and Juliet that does full justice, but we're trying to just get the gist of what's going on so that your reader can read the paper. So we don't have to know about Juliet's argument with her dad. We don't have to know about Romeo fighting Paris or seeing the apothecary. We don't have to really talk a lot about Mercutio, even though those are wonderful parts of the story. But for a summary like this, we're just going to hit the main plot line. Okay, Red Badge of Courage. This one was really easy because it's a short book. In the Red Badge of Courage, a young man named Henry Fleming joins the Union Army to prove his bravery and manhood, but the uncertainties and horrors of war are far from the heroic deeds he imagined. Boom! You're given kind of the main idea of how it starts off. Okay, then after running away in the second battle, Henry, along with his new friend Wilson, learns to fight well and becomes the new color guard and one of the most respected men in his regiment. So we got how he changed, what he expected, what he actually did, how he failed, how he grew. We're done. Okay. So here, this one's actually in 2 sentences, long sentences. So, you can kind of cheat that way. But those are some examples. All right. So here we have some ideas for hooks. We have some examples of how to introduce your novel. Then you'll give your thesis statement. Then you can start working on those body paragraphs. Now, what I will say just about my own writing process, and since this isn't like a timed TS and supports thing, you can jump around, especially since you're typing. If the introduction doesn't come to you right then, leave some space, write what you do know, and then loop back to it. One thing that I told a lot of you guys that I have to do is that I have a rough thesis statement, and then as I write my rough draft and develop my thoughts more, then I can go back and make changes to my thesis statement and look over everything to see that it all fits. So writing sometimes is a really messy process, and that's okay. A lot of people, that's how they're wired. A lot of creative people, that's how they're wired. A lot of actual writers write that way. Flannery O'Connor has a quote I shared with some of you guys. It's one of my favorites. She said, "I don't really know what I think until I read what I've written." And I find that that's true, and some of you may find that true as well. And that's okay. This is a process. So I hope that's encouraging for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you need anything, let me know. I've got office hours today. I do have at 12:30, I've got a senior thesis presentation to watch. But then Tomorrow, I don't. And we have, I know it's a kind of an off day, but I have office hours if you need me from 9 to noon. And then if those times aren't good and you want to shoot me an email and say, hey, could we have a Zoom meeting or something at this time to talk about my paper? We can do that. We can do that. Um, just let me know. All right. Thank you all very much and have a blessed day.